Welcome to the Align in the Stars podcast. My name's Jordan.
I'm Matt.
Awesome. So, this is a Star Wars and a Star Trek podcast. In our nerddom, we haven't found anything like this anywhere. YouTube, Stitcher, anywhere. Anywhere podcasts are going, they're either talking about Star Trek, they're talking about Star Wars, and for us, the two of us, there's a love for both. And so we talk a lot about this. So we figure, why not do this? Just for reference, we both work in a restaurant. We found a common interest when we first started working together a while back. When it first started was when The Mandalorian was about to drop. And since then, 2 seasons in, finished the last episode of Mandalorian season 2 just yesterday. Since then, it's been this crazy ride, and we've talked to each other a lot. We've talked with other people. People have asked us questions. We have a lot of fun talking about stuff like this. And then since then, I was able to bring him over onto the other side, and kind of go from there. So, we talk a lot. We talk a lot about this at work. We text each other a lot with this. And so we just kind of figured bring it in, do a podcast, and see where we might go with it. So at least for me, my name is Jordan. I've been a avid Star Trek fan since my dad introduced it to me about 8 years before this guy was born. And for me, I grew up listening to, Star Trek books, reading Star Trek books, watching Star Trek, the movies, the whole shebang, and always having this passive love for Star Wars. And for me, in the last little while, it's kind of shifted where I've kind of fallen more in love with Star Wars and less in love with Star Trek. And I think, not speaking for Matt, but, it's interesting, like, having a love for both sides of it, because it makes me appreciate just what we have right now out there in the world with having Star Wars and Star Trek being active, and long time for both franchises where it wasn't happening. And so it's pretty awesome to be where we're at right now. And so for me, I'm a huge nerd, and I'm proud of it. I grew up in an era where being a nerd was not accepted at all in any way. And so it's a lot of fun to be here and be able to talk about it openly, and hopefully find a group of people out there who are willing to listen to us two nerds talk about this stuff. So that's who I am.
And as far as I go, I grew up mostly on Star Wars. I was introduced to the original trilogy by my dad when he picked up the Laserdisc copies.
Oh my God!
From a neighborhood garage sale, and him being the movie buff, he had to have it in widescreen. I didn't even mention this to you. He bought a widescreen 16:9 CRT television. It has HDMI plug-in, which is it's that merge between recent new tech and then the old tube TVs.
Wow!
So that's how I watched Star Wars, was on Laserdisc. If I remember correctly, the most original release of the movie.
Oh man!
And getting up in the middle of the movie and flipping the disc over so I could continue to watch Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
And as far as timeline goes, I did the math for this. I was 10 when Revenge of the Sith came out.
Oh my God. I was about to graduate high school.
So, and my big memory was my friend going to a birthday party, and he was going to go see Revenge of the Sith.
Oh.
And my dad's like, I don't know if you're quite old enough for that. And so, because of that, now granted, I don't know how Revenge of the Sith would have played to my 10-year-old mind, but because of that decision, I missed out on the
Oh,
whole film release of the
man.
prequels.
Man.
And so all of it's been in the home theater. And from there, it's always present. But then it really kicked into gear after Disney bought Star Wars.
Right.
And that's when I go, okay, new canon, everything's washed clean essentially. I have a starting point now.
Yes.
Because I became aware of how crazy Legends was.
Yes, God.
And how, I mean, it's almost as vast as Star Trek.
It's actually we're doing what we do best, and we're about to diverge
On tangents, yes.
You will find this. Legends is ridiculous.
Yes.
And I have to say that I'm going to agree with you on that. That's when actually I fell in love with Star Wars again, is when, like, a lot of people knock Star Wars or Disney for buying Star Wars. They're giving us Star Wars.
Yeah, and
right?
that's I didn't have a problem with it. Like, any problems I put down to who's leading it.
Right.
Because let's be honest, Disney gave them all their money to continue to let Star Wars have a story.
That's right.
And that's something that, I mean, I would have missed out on if that didn't happen.
Absolutely.
So because of that, we got the Clone Wars. Technically, I was before, but it was brought in.
Right.
But once that canon was reset, that's when I started my adventure going through Clone Wars and Rebels. Not yet Resistance.
Same.
I'll get to that. But I mean, I've read almost all of the books. Anything pretty much young adult up with certain exclusions. And then also watched all the movies at least 10 times. And then also, obviously, separating the sequel trilogy because of how recent it is.
Right.
So, and that's how I kind of just dove head into that.
Yeah.
So when I met this guy and we just bonded, I'm like, never gonna be a boring day. There's gonna be this guy's gonna get at least one reference I make throughout the day.
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing. I definitely fell in love with Star Wars at the same time. Because of that reset, I actually was able to read Legends. I own a ton of Legends stuff. Rogue Squadron, X-Wing books, Palpatine and his 1,000 clones, the 1,000 different death machines.
You bet we'll talk about those.
Absolutely. And so it's when Disney came in and said, no, all of that is now just beta canon, for lack of a better term, which is what Star Trek does, and I think Star Trek does really well.
Yeah.
And so that's when I fell in love with Star Wars as well.
And then to parrot that, after talking with you, that's what started my path down to Star Trek. Yep. I wasn't devoid of Star Trek. My dad also introduced me to the original Trek movies, though primarily focusing on the good ones.
Yeah.
To just generally say, my dad was about even on both and never went to the levels that I have now gone to.
Yeah.
So it's been said that it'd be very interesting to see if my dad could see how much of a nerd I've become. And his reaction to that, because I took it to a whole another level for my family.
Same.
And I am the resident. Hey, so about this person.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, Star Trek. I'm damn near 40, and Star Trek's been a part of my life since the Next Gen was maybe in season 2. So you're talking like 88, 89, somewhere in that neighborhood. And I was a hardcore, like, you didn't miss an episode. And I didn't miss an episode from 1988 through 2001 when Voyager finally finished. I didn't miss an episode. And from that time, there was Star Trek on constantly. There was movies constantly. But then, like Star Trek, there was franchise fatigue, and I was done. And Enterprise came out, and I was like, whatever. Like, I don't care. I don't want you to go back before Kirk and Spock. Stop. Let's keep moving this thing forward. And it took me about 5-6 years to really go back and watch Enterprise after it came out on DVD. And I was disappointed that I didn't watch it serially as it came out, because it was actually a really good show. We won't talk about the last episode. But then the J.J. Abrams movies came out, and it was fantastic, but it still didn't quite feel like Star Trek, just from the sense of, like, it just was not, it just had this weird feel. It felt, like, very just glitzy and glammy and didn't feel right. I have an appreciation for them now these days. But then, even when Discovery came out, I was really kind of skeptical. And I just bit the bullet one day, purchased CBS All Access, and said, you know what? I'm going to see what I get through this free trial. And within 3 episodes, I was hooked. And from there, everything that's happened, season 2 of Discovery, season 3 of Discovery that's going on right now is just insane. Picard was amazing. Lower Decks is fantastic. We got Strange New Worlds coming up. We're going to talk more about that here in a little bit. But all along the way, with Star Wars, it's like, obviously Star Trek's my thing. So what you're going to find is, on one side of the table, Star Wars is much more, like, knowledgeable. For me, I'm the ultimate Star Trek nerd. I challenge many people to try to know me about Star Trek. And if you do, I congratulate you. But, the idea is we're going to be bringing opposite perspectives on this. And so for me in Star Wars, it was like, when The Force Awakens came out, it blew my mind. I watched Clone Wars as it was coming out and was sad when it was canceled. I only just watched Rebels recently, like within the last year, and I've already watched it 4 times through. Same with Matt. I have not done Resistance. I'm just a little leery of it. It's not Filoni, so I'm a little strange. But I have this love of Star Wars, and it's always about the characters. And, like, the one thing you're going to find with the two of us talking is it's the characters. It's the stories that are driven within. And that's what really has got me into this. And so, that's what brought me, what brought me to liking sci-fi was the characters. Always the characters. And, you have icons like Darth Vader. Anakin Skywalker, same character.
Padme, with all the extra stuff that they put out for her.
Right. Ahsoka,
the biggest one.
Yeah.
My favorite.
And the one thing that Matt and I really have in common is a love for Ahsoka.
Yes.
It's kind of ridiculous. So, it's actually kind of fitting that episode 0.0 or 0.5 or whatever you want to call this is done here. I think that's a great place to start it. Eventually, we will be finding a much more, you're going to hear the sounds of a restaurant going around. We are closed right now, but you'll hear sounds of restaurants going along in the background and what have you, probably for the first episode or 2.
But it's authentic to us.
It is authentic to us because we talk a lot here about this. And, the idea to do this podcast has been kind of an organic thing. I had originally about 1.5 years ago wanted to start a YouTube channel focusing on Star Trek, and because there wasn't a whole lot of them. We talk a lot about it, and there's a passion for it here. And, it was probably about 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago, there's a roving person that works in our company, and he came in, and we just nerded out for an entire shift. It was probably one of the most fun that we had on any shift. We do this all the time. And he was like, we should probably do this. Yeah. He's not here, and that's fine.
But it's the kick that we wanted, we needed, and something that goes, okay, that nail has been 90% into the board. That was the last 10% that we go, we actually really should.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. And so it became this thing where, like, let's design it, let's do it. When it comes to this, I am so out of my league when it comes to graphic design and all that jazz. And I'm actually really looking forward to, like, learning about the whole process. But the whole thought is like, we want to talk about Star Trek and Star Wars. And we want to do it in such a way that
It's uplifting for both.
right, because everybody like it's Star Wars or Star Trek.
And really, there's aspects that can be drawn. Not many, but there are parallels that can be drawn on how stuff's handled, how characters are developed, and plot points, and just numerous aspects that both can share and both can be praised, criticized. But I mean, ultimately, we're looking to lift both up and have create an environment where we can raise essentially everyone up and aspects of Star Wars, Star Trek, and make it as welcoming and open to everyone, and especially new people who are entering in, like I've done. Like talking to this guy, that's what started on me on my Star Trek voyage.
Yeah.
I'm one letter away from actually naming a series on that one.
Right.
But the from my perspective of going through, I've kind of just gone through with open eyes and excitement to everything that's Star Trek has to offer, since my only experience with Star Trek beforehand was marathoning TOS when I had my wisdom teeth removed. So honestly, some may say that's the best way to watch TOS.
Yes. Agreed.
Because
all at once and then never again.
And then most of the Next Generation, and Next Generation is one of those shows that just branches off into so much of pop culture.
Absolutely.
That's why it became so big, and that's one of the most recognized outside of TOS. Thank you, BBC America.
Absolutely, thank you, BBC America, 100%.
So yeah, only recently I finished Deep Space Nine. I've just started my voyage on Voyager, and I mean I still got another one full series.
Yeah.
Not 7 episodes, not 7 seasons, but another full series of Trek to go after that. So I'm coming from the perspective of it's all new to me, and just like a sponge, just like, all right, you thought that I was done soaking up information on Star Wars? Let's see if I can handle another Star series.
Absolutely, yeah. And I've always joked, like, I'm also Star. I used to always joke if they said Star and then something sci-fi afterwards, I was all about it. I am also super into Stargate. We might maybe further down the line, long down the line. Stargate will be talked about, whatever. I'm also a huge Lord of the Rings fan,
Huge.
But it's also pop culture.
It's also pop culture, yeah, because my other sci-fi series was Doctor Who.
Right.
And that's one that I picked up with, wow, this speaks to how long it's been from in the Doctor Who universe. The Ninth Doctor, it starts with an E. His last name,
you nothing.
Yeah. Yes, I wish I could. He played, and this is a Marvel thing, so you wouldn't even get that one. So I can't even make that. It's it's that guy from Thor 2.
Right.
I say to the person who had the Marvel movies. Ecclestein.
Yeah. Yep.
And then Tennant, Matthew Smith, the guy from the Pompeii episode. I forget his name. He was also a cynical character. And then up to I think this is the 13th Doctor. I'm blanking on the name, but that's where I fell off. So that's my other sci-fi background. So
yeah,
we'll eventually, like when we get in Stargate, I can compare with Doctor Who, which is, I mean. Look, they started out, Doctor Who started out before Star Trek.
Doctor Who is an icon, and once again, it's pop culture.
It's pop culture.
Right? I mean, you're talking Doctor Who, Star Trek, and Star Wars are what created pop culture.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I think that is so important for us to do this.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't know who's going to listen. I don't know if anybody's going to listen. Right?
If you are, I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Hello.
Absolutely. You know,
My name's Matthew.
And Jordan here. The idea here, by the way, is not to make money.
No.
At all.
It's mostly just like, this is something that we do at work. We're technically on the clock.
Yeah, we're not on the clock.
Paid.
Right. We actually,
We go, wait, we run a restaurant.
Yes.
We should like get back to that sometimes.
I know.
And so we go, I mean, if anything, like, let's just catalog this and just like put it out there.
Yeah.
And like, if we can get some interest in, other people joining us on this crazy half tangent podcast.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're along for the tangent crazy ride.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, we're just a couple of guys who really love this. And, the whole idea is to, exactly as Matt said, bring as many people along with the ride, because it is fun. It's something that gives me joy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I go home and I've probably watched I've seen the last episode of episode 16 of The Mandalorian 3 times already. I'm probably going to watch it 3 more times before the end of this weekend, and then get ready for the rewatch of the full series again.
Yeah.
I mean, Star Wars and Star Trek is everything to me. And, to echo what Matt said, it's to bring people along, to just make a community of people that want to talk about this. We want to talk to you about it. We want to engage you on it. I am a variable information source when it comes to Star Trek.
I tested him out when he said he was the master of Star Trek. Every day when Jordan is at work on the TV, BBC America is playing Star Trek.
Yep.
And that has that's a constant now.
Yes.
And so when I decided I was going to test him, so I started taking like 10-second video clips of an episode that was playing. I go, okay, Jordan, what's the name of this episode? And not once did he get it wrong.
Yeah.
Not once.
And yeah, I will sometimes forget to take out the trash, but I will remember that.
Yeah.
And so that's why we're doing this. And really, before we kind of get in, there is actually going to be a little bit of content. We did want to spend a little bit of time, getting to introduce ourselves.
Yes,
and, we're also this is an experiment. This episode may wind up disappearing at some point. We may re-record some stuff, what have you. But, we're just kind of testing stuff out. But, the long and short of it is the goal is to bridge the gap. There's a gap in between Star Wars and Star Trek fans. A lot of people feel that they can't be both. And, I love Star Wars. I love Star Trek. Okay. And?
Yeah, it's and why is this important?
Exactly. Can't you like both? Right now, we are in the best time that any of us nerds have ever had.
Yeah.
Both franchises are healthy. They're pumping out TV shows. There's movies on the horizon.
This is unprecedented.
Yes, both at the same time.
There's been gaps in both Star Trek and Star Wars where there's no primary content.
Yes.
Thanks to fans and writers, there always has been a presence. But there was a gap, and that's why I miss Star Trek.
Yes.
Was that there wasn't a series running when I was around that same age of being 10 and Star Wars Episode 3 was out.
Right.
And then there was another just gap.
Yes.
There was a time where both series, no main content was coming out.
Yes, and so to live where we are right now, let's embrace this. Let's go.
Even if there's episodes that are
yeah,
I wish it wasn't there. I mean, look, we have content.
We have content, exactly, and it is such a beautiful thing. To be a nerd right now is amazing, and it's never been like this. And as I said in the beginning, there are no shows out there. There are no podcasts. There's no YouTube.
In our research.
And I'm not looking too hard.
Right. I mean, not looking to try to adopt and like the Borg, just like take the aspects that we hear and we're gonna put it into our show. We were the original creators of this aspect.
Right.
No. So we kind of stayed away from it, but like in our limited research, we're like, hey, this is a thing that we can't easily find. So
right. Well, and that's the thing that also makes what we talk about, because I mean, we will talk about Star Trek and Star Wars equally, and then we will compare and contrast equally. And I look for that on YouTube. I'm a huge YouTube fan. And I look for it, and there's nothing there. And the Star Trek, Star Wars content out there, Star Wars by far has better representation on YouTube, by far. There are some of my favorite YouTubers are all Star Wars YouTubers.
Yeah.
We'll call them out eventually. I'm not going to say that today.
Yeah, no.
But you know who they are. There are 3 of them, 3 big ones, and they're all awesome. I was looking for that for Star Trek, and I was late to the party, and through circumstances, I wasn't able to launch my channel, and I'm almost grateful that didn't happen, because we wouldn't be here right now. We wouldn't be sitting down and talking about it, and
there's a lot more prep work to do for those kind of videos.
Man, like
there's research. You're gonna have like a 20-page document on a script. You're gonna have to get video clips.
No, I work full time, 50 hours a week.
Trust me, this man doesn't need more work.
I don't, and so that's the thing. So this is the perfect format for us, because all we're doing in the end is just sitting here and talking, And then the other side of it is we want to bring fans over. If we're able to get enough of a following, we want to be able to entice that Star Wars fan.
Encourage.
Drop that little hint that, hey, maybe if you watch season 3, episode 10 of Discovery, you're going to see a Guardian of Forever reference going back to an episode of Star Trek from the 60s. And there are some of us that are going to be losing their goddamn minds when they see this. And you don't feel anything in that moment. I just want to drop that little shred of it. Hey, check it out. Give it a shot. And if it's not worthy of it, then great.
Even better, if you like aspects that were in this Star Wars show, hey, there is a Star Trek for you.
Exactly.
And if you like Star Wars, there is a Star. I don't know if I said that backwards.
You did say that backwards, but vice versa.
Vice versa, exactly. That there are enough elements from both series that if you like one thing from one side, there is something for you on the other side.
Absolutely.
And there is a difference in how those are done and the aura of both. But ultimately, if you're looking at story, character, all that stuff, there's stuff that can be connected.
Yes. And there's stuff for everyone in Star Trek and Star Wars. And the whole idea is to be able to just talk about what makes them common, what makes them similar, what makes them dissimilar, what brings us to liking certain things and not liking certain things. We are not homers, by the way. We will, if something we don't like, we will say it. And there are often times where Matt and I are on opposite sides of things.
Episode 9. But then we all
then we wind up So just for reference, the last movie before pandemic hit, we're up in Washington, so this state has been insane with its restrictions. We've been in full quarantine basically since last February. So the last movie that I saw with anybody was with Matt, and it was episode 9. And at that time, I walked out of the theater like, oh yeah, that was great.
And I was like,
yeah, and he's biting his tongue like, I don't know. And then I hadn't watched it since. And just recently, while I was sitting in quarantine waiting for code results, I watched episode 9 and trash. Just trash. And we'll get into reasons for that. But
we'll do analysis.
Yeah, exactly. We'll break it down and stuff like that. But that's the thing. It's to be able to say that. We're not going to just sit there. Oh, well, it's Star Trek. It's good.
Or it's Star Wars.
It's good.
It's good.
And it's Star Trek. It's bad.
Right.
We're not going to do that, and because it's important to stay objective, and because we know that with these podcasts, we're offering our own opinions.
100% authentic, locally grown, trademarked opinions.
Right. And our opinions are ours and they're not yours. And so the idea is that, maybe we take a little bit of our opinion. It might influence you to want to check it out, because the whole goal here is to just get people interested in the other side. And it doesn't matter if, even like not even interested in the other side. If you just want to talk about sci-fi, this is a sci-fi podcast.
Yeah.
Right. And so we're talking about sci-fi. And so the idea is that, we're building a community so that we can talk about it, and the biggest thing that I'm going to stress is that your opinion's yours. Ours are ours. And we're not going to argue about them, because this is not the sort of community that we're going to have,
Yeah.
And so with that being said, the idea is to celebrate.
It's celebrate. We're not gonna. We can debate. We can debate, and we can disagree, and we can still be okay with each other's opinions, and that we have differing ones.
Right.
But we're not going to discourage or ignore because someone else has a different opinion.
Right.
That's one of the things that we're not going to do, because end of the day, we're not all going to have the same opinions and takeaways from episodes, from movies, and some things will mean more or less to each other. Right. So, end of the day, it's what you take out from those shows and then sharing it with people.
Exactly. Yeah, and we are never going to stomp on you for having an opinion. No. And that's the biggest problem. And the next episode, we'll get into what the next episode is going to be. But the biggest the problem that I have with both Star Trek and Star Wars is the fans. And we've seen a lot of that of late, and we all know what we're talking about.
Yes, we don't even have to mention it.
We don't. Yeah.
In either camp, there are times where the fans have reacted ways that have influenced how that thing is perceived.
Yes. And that's messy. It
gets dirty.
Yes.
You feel bad about it.
Yes.
And then you just go, well, I mean,
what's the point?
This
is fandom.
Yeah.
Shouldn't make you feel bad for liking something, right? And so, once again, the idea is we create this community where we can talk, and it's an open forum for the nerds out there to talk about nerd stuff, and where we can all find some enjoyment for it, you know? And so that's really what we're looking for. And so I guess without further ado, let's actually talk maybe a little bit about... Let's maybe just talk a little bit. Now, normally going forward, we won't talk this much about that. We'll figure out a format. I don't think there's going to be a normal format. Like, that gets boring. I don't want, regular content to be happening.
Oh, but it's 10 minutes in. Time to switch topics.
Exactly. There's not going to be, we'll have all sorts of stuff going on. The idea is a revolving set of, stuff going on. Once again, this is all the beginning. We have no idea. But we're not going to talk this much about nothing but something. So, without further ado, I guess let's actually dig in. So I guess the biggest thing that I kind of want to bring into is, kind of where both franchises are sitting. We kind of alluded to it a little while ago. I think where Star Trek and Star Wars are sitting right now is probably the healthiest it's ever been. And it's crazy to think that 5 years ago,
this wasn't.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't. In 2015, there was rumors of The Force Awakens, right? There's casting rumors. There's stuff kind of going around a little bit. Disney was going in and alienating all their fans, and so that's on the Star Wars side of things. Star Trek was, JJ was doing his thing, and we were getting half-assed movies.
Where is it going?
Where's it going?
And as far as JJ goes, I watched the first one, I watched the second one, but that's when I dropped off
Yeah.
because after the second one, I go, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. And now, from what you've said, I should probably watch the third
Yeah,
one.
honestly, Star Trek Beyond is great. Like, it's Justin Lin from the Fast and the Furious franchise.
Yeah.
And so the pacing is much better. And just, it's JJ's world, right? Like, both, I guess, both franchises owe JJ Abrams, I guess, a bit of a thank you.
Yeah.
Like,
both.
he came in, started with Star Trek in 2009. The first Star Trek movie was a tough pill to swalla in a lot of ways.
It was, and that's coming from someone who wasn't intimately invested in Star Trek. It was going in. I remember going to the theaters and going out and go, okay, I know these characters, but I am also aware that there is a twist on these characters that was not present on the original ones. And that was like, okay, who are these people I thought I knew?
Right, and that's exactly it. And they did such a beautiful job of casting.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Absolutely. But then where it lost me was Into Darkness. You know, seeing Benedict Cumberbatch in the Star Trek family is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, as a huge Sherlock Holmes fan, as a huge...
That's another thing that may or may not be talked about.
Right.
It's not really sci-fi.
It's close enough.
But, I mean, there was that TV show where Sherlock Holmes was in the future.
Correct. So we'll go ahead and go with that.
We could add that in, like, an aside.
Right. As an aside a little bit, but I mean, for me, it's Smaug. From Lord of the Rings, or I guess the Hobbit trilogy specifically. But like, even then though, the bastardization of the story just kind of, like, I get you're in an alternate timeline. I get it. I get that you now have free will to kind of do whatever the hell you want. But really?
Yeah.
Really? Like,
my name is Khan.
Yeah, come on.
And then Kirk's like, okay, hi, I'm Kirk.
Like, who the hell are you? Like,
yeah.
We're
not gonna go. Oh
no, I know.
But it's like as you know, as crossing the bridge, that sort of thing.
Right.
It's like,
and that's the thing. Like, so JJ did give us Star Trek, and then he obviously gave us The Force Awakens.
He gave both series a kick.
Exactly. So, and since then, I guess going back to 2009, with Star Trek specifically, even then they did a movie, and then it was a couple years later they did a movie, and then it was like another couple years later they did a movie, and then there was nothing, and then the only good thing that really kind of came from that was the fact that Alex Kurtzman was with JJ on Star Trek 2009, and having Alex Kurtzman in there, he was the Star Trek fan. It wasn't JJ. JJ was just the name.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but he's also a fantastic director, lens flare aside. And it's got its place.
It's got its place. But people were blinded.
Just not in every scene. It's dark in the room, lens flare. But, it brought us Alex Kurtzman, and he took a chance by putting Discovery out there and pissed off a lot of fans along the way. And it definitely divided the fans, and we're going to be talking about in the next podcast. It's something that I'm really passionate about, is the divide that happened in the fans with both the new, like, the kind of the kickstarts of both new franchises.
And then that's the advantage for me, because Discovery was was that the first or second one that I watched? I think I watched Picard first. And
you did watch Picard first, yeah.
So I watched Discovery, but at the same time, I was also doing, I don't know if I was doing Deep Space Nine tandem, but it was after getting caught up with Discovery.
Yeah.
But I still had that parallel of going from new Trek to back to old Trek.
Right.
And then having that experience. So I missed that gap. I missed that divide. So in my perspective, as a little hint, I don't see much of how it would be divided.
Right.
It still feels like Trek to me.
Absolutely. And that's what we get to talk about, and it's so cool.
A little dip, a little bit of sugar sprinkled in next episode's tea.
Absolutely.
Tea? I meant coffee.
Earl Grey.
So
and then with Star Wars, it was this kind of this slow burn. You know, we saw when George Lucas sold Star Wars to Disney, like you see Rebels come into play, and Rebels is such a fantastic series. Like Clone Wars, we both have a love for Clone Wars. Clone Wars, I think, is some of the best that Star Wars has ever put out. I think that Dave Filoni single-handedly saved Hayden Christensen and Anakin Skywalker.
Yes,
that's why we get to see them in Kenobi. Like, I really, truly believe that.
That's something to look forward to.
That is very much something to look forward to.
And then you take that and you also he then follows that up also with after Clone Wars, we get Rebels.
We get Rebels.
Rebels. Despite the smoother look of Rebels and the thin lightsabers, just got mention that one.
You gotta throw out the thin lightsabers,
With the change in art style, though, it still feels like a companion, a follow-up, a spiritual successor to Clone Wars. And then the amazing happened. We got season 7.
And season
7 is... Again, you say Clone Wars is some of the best Star Wars that's come out.
Yeah.
You take season 7
and
just on its own, and that is some of the best Star Wars storytelling that's come out from Star Wars.
Episodes 9 through 12.
9 through 12.
I mean, if I'm feeling bad about myself, and I know it's Order 66, I know we're seeing Jesse die. I know. But if I'm looking to feel good about myself, I'm going to put on episodes 9 through 12 of season 7 of Clone Wars.
If I want to sit down and go, I want to experience awe today.
Yes.
Those are the episodes I put on.
Absolutely.
Because
the
storytelling in those 4 episodes are just... I don't get tired. I don't get tired of it.
Same. Maul and Ahsoka and Rex.
Yeah, and we will have an episode just dedicated to memorable characters in both franchises.
Absolutely.
Because there's a lot to say on characters.
Yeah.
Those are the backbone, and we've gotten some of the best stories recently for characters.
God, yeah. And I mean, like Rebels, I'm currently finishing up the last season of Rebels for like the 4th time. And I always kind of get this pause. You know, Rebels, it's interesting how Rebels was done. It was the 1st and 4th season were only 15 episodes. And then 2 and 3 had, 23 episodes or something like that. Yeah, 22, 23. And around episode 11 of Rebels of season 4, I have to stop binging it. I have to take each episode in stride, and the episode that I'm planning on watching tonight when I get home is Jedi Knight. And I always pause. There are certain episodes, like the Mortis episodes of Clone Wars, or you stop.
You step back.
And like in Star Trek and Star Wars, okay, so I would say that an equivalent would be Best of Both Worlds. Right?
Yeah.
Like you get to, because like Next Generation is very non-serialized. Deep Space Nine, which you just finished. Very serialized. And I told you, take a moment before the last episode. Take that moment to breathe because you need it. And
otherwise it's just a continuous stream.
Exactly. And so I took a moment before Jedi Knight, and I'm going to watch it tonight, and I've seen it. This will be my 4th time, and I know I'm going to cry. Every time. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm a man and I'll freaking cry. I don't care. I mean, it's that moment, you know, and 2 episodes later, you got Ezra in the World Between Worlds realizing the lesson, and for me, like, I'm going to take each one of these last couple episodes in stride and in their time. And, Star Trek gets the same thing, although I would say the thing that modern Star Trek does best right now is, it's not episodic. It's one story, right? And so, like, I would say the last 3 or 4 episodes of Discovery Season 2, where everything's just coming to a head,
Mhm.
and you just got to stop and take those moments and those chills and what is said from Burnham to Spock, and those emotional moments, like or when Tilly grabs Burnham and she pulls Burnham out into the hallway or into the corridor with the
Mhm.
crew and saying, "You're not going by yourself,"
Mhm.
right? It's those moments where it's just like, that's what grips me and
Yeah.
gets me about it, right? And so, like, the state that Star Trek is in and Star Wars is in is such a interesting and healthy place.
Yeah, and this is also entirely talking about where the shows are, at least trajectory wise,
Right.
possibly financially wise. I don't spend my weekends looking at the viewerships
Nor do
of
I.
that.
Don't
but
care.
but in terms of health that we can observe through just the shows themselves, we have a whole bunch of content.
Yes.
And luckily for us nerds, it doesn't seem like it will stop
No.
anytime soon.
No. It's amazing.
Especially with Disney.
Exactly.
Especially with Disney.
Yeah.
And so we have that advantage of we're not going to be short of content.
Yeah.
And that those stories, especially, and that's one of the things that Star Trek does so well, is being able to tell more stories, new stories, update itself,
Yeah.
and reflect where we are in the
Yes.
world now.
Yes.
Star Wars is we'll do a little contrast. Star Wars is very much action oriented,
Yes.
and telling an overarching like drama story.
Correct.
Depending on which trilogy you watch, that there is an Star Wars is much more focused on the adventure aspect
Yes.
of the universe.
Well, the adventure aspect of good
sci-
versus evil.
of good versus evil,
Yeah.
and then you have the reflection of Star Trek, where it's much more character centric,
Yes.
and you get to see again through these mostly episodes. I mean,
Yes.
the last movie was
Oh God. Yeah.
what was JJ, and that was years ago.
Yes.
So we have this continual release of having character growth that can be extended through much more time than a movie can ever reasonably give a character.
Look
And
at the sequel trilogy.
the sequel trilogy, specifically episode
Yes.
9, which
Yes.
should have been at least a half hour longer.
Star Wars on meth.
So exactly. And so that's one of the cool things that
Yeah.
I love about coming into Star Trek is that coming off of Deep Space Nine, I can't tell you how many episodes that I walked away going, holy fucking shit.
Yeah.
You could play this now.
Yes.
And it is more relevant sometimes now.
Oh yeah.
Than it was. And that's one of the things.
The Bell Riot episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so. When I used to think of Star Wars, here's another aspect of where I was coming from. When I think of Star Wars, I used to think, well, Star Trek, especially TOS, was one of those shows that by the last 10 minutes of the episode, you knew what the moral of the story was.
Correct.
You knew that, hey kids, remember to brush your teeth with Ovaltine.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where it is so blatant sometimes that it just whacks you across the face.
Yeah.
And then you go, at least personally, I go, okay, was this character growth or was this, Animaniacs, what's the lesson that we've learned today?
Nice.
And so, and I mean that, and honestly, that also holds true with Next Gen.
Yes.
Is it has that
it's the moral of the week.
Yeah, and I attribute that to how close it was to Roddenberry.
Yes.
Is you have that influence, you have that even after he passed away, you have that legacy that that sticks with it.
Yes.
And
to
then,
this day.
To this day. It's still there. And
Yes.
especially, I mean, you got Discovery episodes that still, like, you can take a message away from.
Yes.
And then you get Deep Space Nine. And Deep Space Nine,
so good.
it does still have those morals.
Yeah.
But it is so driven into the characters and their story that you forget that the fact that there's a moral at the end of this is almost missed on you.
Yeah.
And then you go back and you look at how characters interacted with each other and trust and heartbreak.
Yeah.
And you have that. I will apologize. I'm coming off of a DS9 high.
Yeah, for sure.
It is so good, and that's one of the things I'm looking forward to Voyager is seeing how Voyager differs. And I'm only like 6 episodes in, and immediately I'm like, okay, this is back to TNG.
Yes.
This is back to going boldly.
Yes.
And I am aware that was
putting
one of the
that.
things.
Yeah, going boldly. I like that. Yeah.
And this is I'm aware that was a separation in DS9.
Yes.
That it was, as critics put it, 1,000 people slowly rotating around a slowly rotating planet.
That's right.
That just happens to have a giant blue purple
wormhole
portal.
Exactly.
In out there.
Right.
And I mean, one, that's a huge disservice to DS9.
100%.
And two, I mean, there is, again, I will probably change my mind as I go further into Voyager, but so far, DS9 has done that better than Next Gen and definitely TOS.
Yes.
Ever did. There are amazing episodes in Next Gen, and there are good episodes in TOS. But there are more episodes, I feel. I'll say it in a different way. There are the list of episodes I will immediately pick out from TOS are roughly equal to the number of episodes I pick out from DS9. But I feel DS9 has more episodes where I can just pick up and just give to someone.
Yes.
And just you get the same message. And that's actually the benefit of TNG as well.
Yes.
Is that it's so self-contained.
Correct.
That if you want to watch all data-centric episodes, you
Go.
can.
Yeah.
There's that, and by the time you get to after the movies, like you'll go, Data.
Yeah.
He was a human, man.
That's right.
he was
all
to
courage.
Take words from Kirk. His was probably the most human.
Nice. Very nice. You know, it's funny, Matt's talking a lot about Deep Space Nine, and it was my favorite show. Deep Space Nine, like, I grew up, like, first with TOS, and it was like my dad was kind of like Matt. My dad was the person who brought it all in. It was TOS, and then it was Next Gen, but Deep Space Nine was the first Star Trek that I got to watch on my own as a choice. And, you know, I remember it was 1993. I remember exactly where I was sitting when I saw the opening crawl, like, in Star Wars.
Yeah.
That, you know, here's this crawl talking about the Battle of Wolf 359, and it's like, yes, please. And then going through, like, watching it every week for years, you know, like, Deep Space Nine debuted when I was in 4th grade. Was it 4th grade? It was 3rd or 4th grade. It was, somewhere in there. It was 4th grade. I was a sophomore in high school when it finished. And so my entire formative years were Star Trek Deep Space Nine. And then re-watching Next Gen as it came through. I honestly haven't watched too much TOS these days. I find it to be a little hard to watch these days.
Yeah.
McCoy comes off as like really racist, and it really kind of bothers me because I love McCoy.
That's the thing is always quoting McCoy is one of the best things.
Absolutely, but
at the same time,
you kind of feel crunchy afterwards.
He comes off as just like so bitter. There was recently someone says just like, there's a lot of words that you could replace. A lot of like choice words that if you choose the right one and replace it with fuck, you just have a cursing McCoy.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, and so like, well said. So like growing up like with Deep Space Nine being formative, watching, as it went through from a show that was very much trying to find its way through the Dominion War, and I can talk a lot about the Dominion War and what it did for Star Trek. It at that time, I think the thing that really set Deep Space Nine apart for me was like Sisko and the fact that he wasn't Picard.
No, he wasn't. I mean, minus the eventual bald head,
right?
Like,
Yeah, I mean,
aside from that,
he punched Q in the face. I mean, come on.
That's one of the that is one of the best lines that you can take from that.
Exactly, and that's the thing. Like, so
I'm not Picard.
I'm not Picard.
You're right.
Yeah,
you're more easily to be provoked.
And so, I by the way, as an aside, I think that Q needed to be used in Deep Space Nine more. As an opinion,
that was only like one episode.
Yeah, but then he's in Voyager for like most of the last 2 seasons, so it's interesting.
I look forward to that.
Yes, indeed. But for me, it was when Star Trek really started to call itself out. And you start to see that these days with like once again, spoiler free. If you haven't seen Picard, you should.
Yes.
But Picard is where they really go in, and then obviously Lower Decks, which is fantastic if you haven't watched that as well. But they start really calling themselves out. Like the Federation is not perfect, and Starfleet, we're all human, and it doesn't.
We're always going to be. It's always going to be a weakness to our human nature.
Correct.
That there is even if there is a utopia in quotations, because true utopias can never be reached.
No,
maybe with an alien species, but with humans, we can only try our best.
Exactly,
and so we can live in what we can try to make the best world that we can live in.
Right.
But there will still be individuals, there will still be powers.
That's right.
That, if not, have that weakness and give into that actively use aspects of the society to further themselves.
Correct.
There's always going to be those gray characters.
Yes.
The slightly darker than gray characters.
Garrick.
That get into I mean, yes, Garrick, but also Starfleet will never be perfect.
No.
And that's one of the things where personally I'm like, Roddenberry did an amazing job setting Trek up.
Absolutely.
He just like Lucas did an amazing job setting up the world. It also helped that there were also other directors for the original trilogy.
Correct.
That could say no to him. But both series were able to stretch out
right
after their creator left the scene.
Correct.
That they were able to slowly experiment more and stretch out and try new things.
Right.
And getting away from the utopia is probably the best thing that could have happened to Star Trek.
Agreed.
Because ultimately, there's only so many stories you can tell if humans are perfect. Well, and that's problematic.
Look at the first 3 seasons of the Next Gen.
Yeah.
You're dealing with this like obvious discrepancy.
Yeah.
Right? Like look at episodes like Contagion.
Yeah.
Where Picard sees, his, I want to say Quinn is the admiral, who's an old, like, good buddy of his. We see him in an episode or two earlier, but by the time you see him in Contagion, he's been taken over by this alien creature. And it was kind of like, holy shit. Like, wait, what's going on? Starfleet has something, there's someone in Starfleet that is mean?
Yeah.
They're mean?
Right.
What? Like, they're mean? Oh my God.
Like, everyone's not like a little angel on Earth.
Right.
I mean,
did Wesley happen to traipse in some flowers? He should have died.
Look, I mean, if we're going like on like textbook,
Yeah.
like Starfleet Protocol, like
Yes, Wesley should have
then
died.
Also, it is morally wrong
Right.
for that to happen, even if it is a civilization that is not capable of warp yet.
I know.
It's like, it is wrong to do it. Like, again, look, the whole thing with the Prime Directive, we're gonna go a little bit into Star Trek for a sec. Is the whole thing with Prime Directive is to not repeat the mistakes of colonialism.
Exactly.
And so that's the whole thing. But it's to such an effect that honestly, has the opposite effect
It hampers storytelling is what it does.
Is that sometimes and at the end of the day, we're talking about character growth for characters. People are going to make their own decisions.
Right.
And they're going to make their own calls on what they think is right. If you have an uptight, by-the-books Vulcan, he goes, I'm sorry, Wesley. No Ready Room show for you.
Exactly.
But if you have someone like Picard,
yeah,
he goes, look, he's the son of our doctor
and my best friend. Yeah,
I can't let this happen. I will do everything I can up until I have to do what I need to do to protect Wesley.
Right.
But at that point, my hands are. I'll keep my hands behind my back as long as I can. But those ropes have been twisted, have been worked.
Yes.
They are ready to break if it calls for it by the captain.
Right.
And if we're living in a utopian society, how many deep stories can you tell about a character, about a situation where we're always right?
Right.
Or
exactly.
that nothing can go wrong and that everything is perfect here. That limits how many stories you can tell.
Absolutely. And it what it does is limits the scope, because for that episode reference alone, right? Picard keeps his hands behind his back and trying to stay as prim and proper and following the rules if he can. In the end, they save Wesley and they change a culture along the way, right?
Yeah.
There's the lesson learned, right? There's the moral of the story for this week. But in that, you compromise the values of Starfleet and the Federation, and you're doing that in season 1 of the Next Gen. Roddenberry probably had a hand in writing that episode and found right then and there that I have already written myself into a corner. And this is after doing Star Trek 2 and Star Trek 3 and 4 and 5.
Yeah.
And you see, like, Star Trek 2 is Khan. Like, Star Trek 2 is a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
Probably top 5 Star Trek movies. Like easily top 3. Like, for me personally.
You said top 5, and I go, oh, he's excluding one of those in the 6.
Yes.
And I go, oh wait, no, it's just literally just a top 5 that you are making.
That's
and
right.
Not calling out a specific
exactly.
movie.
Like, we're not going to talk about the motion picture Star Trek 5, but that's the thing. Like, so they had already gone through and were already challenging, right? And so the Next Generation comes out and they're challenging perceptions. And Deep Space Nine, to kind of bring it round full circle,
Like Space Station.
Yeah, well said. It the challenges that it gave was that we are all human.
Yeah.
Right. Star Wars, even though they're not all human.
I mean, honestly, what are they? They're humanoid.
Humanoid.
It's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Right, exactly. But the trope there is in Star Wars and in Star Trek is we are all just beings. We're all just people. We're all flawed. And the beauty of both is that you get to tell these stories. You get to have these moments like, spoiler free, right? Like hopefully everyone has seen Rebels and knows what happens to Kanan. We get to see those moments, and we get to feel those feelings. We get to live life through these characters. And, because a lot of us, I work 50 hours a week, and, Matt works 40 plus hours a week, and, we both have things that we do, but part of the joy that I get in life is watching these shows and watching, getting that like interpersonal feeling of like when Thrawn pops in at the end of season 2 of Rebels. Rebels is like one of my favorite shows of all time, so I'm gonna talk about it a lot. It's pretty awesome. But like that moment where it's just like, no, they didn't, and
this formerly Legends character,
yes,
is that you bring him in to a time period where in the books he wasn't
exactly.
Who knows what's gonna happen?
Yeah,
and then you have his story there, and then you go, oh, they're making books of him?
A trilogy of books? Are you kidding me?
And then they're gonna make another trilogy after that.
Know.
Like, there's
so, and that's the thing. That's the beauty of it is these characters, and we keep talking about characters. We bring it up,
and that's gonna be like a whole episode on that.
Exactly, and so that's the beauty of it is, we're definitely going long here for sure.
I mean,
whatever.
But, at the end of the day, I think we've well established that, the past has been well established.
Yes.
And that there has been significant growth.
Right.
In both.
Right.
And where they can branch off.
Yep.
And everything has the funding. Both series have the funding.
Yeah.
And so we got the Disney, hey, look, here's all the stuff. By the way, we're going to throw in 2 things that aren't Star Wars, and then announce Indiana Jones.
And then they're also not even going to announce the Book of Boba Fett. Star Wars has dropped what their plan is, the grand vision, right? We get to see Ahsoka. We get to see, which is basically Rebels 2. Yeah. We get to see, I'm really excited for the Star Wars visions.
Yeah, that's one of the things that is so cool, because I've dabbled in anime, and welcoming in these creators to do individual stories set in their own style, their own time.
Yes.
That's just a wealth of information.
Think about Filoni and where he got started with The Last Airbender. Yeah. It makes total sense.
I also loved, as a recent piece of trivia, that I found out that there is a stormtrooper that's named Appa.
Really?
Yeah.
That is okay. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Obviously what's coming up next, and I guess, what's coming up next is a good place to kind of like segue into the final segment of this. What's next for Star Trek? From my understanding, I am in no way, I am not paying attention to production schedules. As much as my nerddom is only going to go so far. I have only got so much energy, but I do dedicate a lot of time to this. But, kind of what's coming up next, we got, for Star Wars, it's going to be a bit.
We're going to have a bit.
We got about a bit, they're basically creating their own, I guess we can call it the Filoniverse.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I got my own feelings and thoughts about what Star Wars is doing right now.
Yeah.
And there are other people that are kind of in the same mode and mindset. I wouldn't be okay with it. I will be totally okay with it, but I'm just not going to talk about it now.
Yeah, just not right now.
Exactly. Yeah. But if you haven't seen the investors presentation from 2 weeks ago that Kathleen Kennedy made for Star Wars, do so. Look it up. It's a lot of Star Wars. I wish that Star Trek would do this. Although Star Trek is pretty kind of clear with what their plan is.
It's more so just like that there is in
Here's
smaller batches going, this is what's coming up.
Yeah.
We know that Strange New Worlds will be coming out. Like,
yeah, I mean, this coming up year in 2021, we're gonna have Discovery season 4 probably dropping about this time next year. We got season 2 of Picard coming up. Lower Deck season 2 is coming up. Expect only 10 episodes for each one of those.
Yeah.
Strange New Worlds is probably going to be early 2022. So that's kind of what's happening with Star Trek. Although the thing that's exciting about that is that because like with Discovery and Picard and like Strange New Worlds, which I'm really excited for, Pike and Spock and number one, please sign me up. You know, with all of that coming up, there's a lot to look forward to. We got movies like the Tarantino rumored movie, you know, coming out. There's Noah Fawley, I believe, it has a rumored movie coming out as well. There's a rumored Discovery movie coming out that's supposed to bridge between seasons 4 and season 5. Which is interesting.
That's interesting.
Yeah, they're like the idea is like the big bad is resolved like for season, and then it's like the setting up of the next big bad for season 5 or something like that. I'm not quite sure what they're planning on doing with that. But Star Trek is very much alive and going.
Yeah.
But once again, it's going to be a minute before we get there. And then obviously
Star Wars is just like, hey, here's a whole bunch of words on backgrounds.
Right.
Nah, just take it. Just do whatever your mind takes
exactly.
Sometimes to dangerous levels of like self-destruction and like setting up like expectations for things
exactly
before we even know what we're doing with the show.
Right. And that's so true because like
it's also just so Star Wars.
It is so Star Wars. And I mean, you don't know anything's going to happen and then all of a sudden you're just assaulted with it. And so, you know, the future is huge. The future is bright for both franchises. You know, and in the future, what's next for us, really, you know, the idea is we're not sure how often in the beginning, like, I'm sure, like, we're not sure how often we're going to be putting out these podcasts. Like, we're going to try to do it as often as we possibly can. But we don't want to obviously, like, talk to the point where nothing is being said.
Exactly.
End, you know, so we're not going to put out anything if we're not ready to sit down and talk about it. We're not going to do it. So we don't know the frequency kind of coming up for what we're going to do it. We still need to sort out where we're going to record. You know, doing it here is fine, but like we're here well after hours. I've been here. It's 10 o'clock, just about 10:30 p.m. I've been here since 8:30 this morning. So I'm a little tired of being here. So hopefully this isn't the place where we're going to be doing this. But, you know, we got a couple things to sort out. You know, this is episode 0. So, you know, who knows how much of this is actually going to be put out into the world. But we're just experimenting and trying and having fun. But the promise that we will make is that the content will be good.
To the best of our abilities.
From our point of view, from a certain point of view. So, you know, we're definitely looking at, you know, trying to put out as much as we can when we can. You know, some of the thoughts we're going to have is, you know, like episode reviews. I think we'll talk about what's next for next week coming up here soon. But like episode reviews, if a movie drops, like say when Rogue Squadron drops here in 2023, if we're still podcasting, you better damn believe we're going to be talking about that shit.
Books,
like when books come out, that's okay. So
that's another thing.
Yeah. So I am all caught up on everything Star Wars and everything Star Trek, except books. I own, I would say, half of all the new canon books. I am currently like 3/4 of the way through Master and Apprentice. Fantastic book, by the way. I'm really looking forward to Dooku, and you know, there's so many in there, but I'm behind on books. So that's one area where Matt has definitely got the leg up on me. So we're going to be reviewing books. We'll be reviewing episodes. We will definitely, like, if you guys have questions for us, please put them down in the comments below.
We will
at 100% answer them. If you think that you can stump me on something, please try. I would love to get stumped. It would force me to actually look at something like, please, like I know a lot about Star Trek. Like Star Trek is where my bread and butter is. Star Wars is where his bread and butter is going to be. So ask us, please. We'll have themes. As a bit of a spoiler going forward, think World Between Worlds and Guardian of Forever and how they relate to each other.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of thing is like how we're going to be looking at certain things. And the idea is just to draw comparisons and have interesting things to talk about for the thing that we all love.
Yeah.
Right. And once again, to reiterate what I said earlier, the idea is to create a community where we can all talk about it and have fun. Like this is all about fun. Star Wars and Star Trek should be fun.
Both are fun, and both are just as goofy and weird.
Absolutely. And as we all know, finding other people like us, when we find them, you hold on to them and you never let go. And so
much like Anakin,
and sand. So we have this love for both, and this incredible depth of knowledge of both. We both have a pretty, I would say, optimistic look at where the franchises are. We both have our feelings about the sequel trilogy. Specifically, but we'll get into that.
And there's still, if we don't have any negativity for you, there's other places you can go.
Absolutely. And there are plenty of YouTube channels, like I said, that we will call out later on. Bring that negativity there. But the long story short is, we really want to just create a forum and a community for us to all talk about these things. And we want, we want it to be as fun for you guys
as for us too, just sitting at the place where we work long after we close.
Yes.
Talking about Star Wars, so we don't. Well, I mean, we probably still will do it on shift.
We will, yeah. But one thing, this week we have talked a lot.
Yes.
Like, this week has been odd for this, and so I was kind of like, when I was writing the plan for this, I was like, well, what do we actually talk about this week? Because we kind of already talked about it.
At the end of the day, we go back through Mandalorian.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a couple more weeks until Discovery finishes up. We'll have spoiler tags for those, so people can know when they can just skip ahead.
Right.
And and then we'll always have something we'll talk about. We'll do, small group of characters at segments, because if we talk about characters in general, get ready for a 2-hour-long podcast, and we will still have an hour left to talk about stuff.
Exactly.
We'll go through everything. We'll do, the movies, books, TV shows, comparing the TV shows and the strengths of where both series come from. They are so different.
Yes.
And both have their strengths and weaknesses that ultimately affected how both series played out in the long run over time.
Yeah.
There's so much. And then also with us, we shouldn't hesitate to go back over stuff that we talked about previously.
Absolutely.
Before. So, there's always going to be stuff where we just go, look, it's Star Trek.
Right.
Look what Star Wars is doing. Isn't it cute?
Right.
It's like there's always going to be so much to just enjoy. And when there's a period, when we get a break, we've got hours of backlog.
Oh my God.
That we can talk about and analyze. And especially one of the things I look forward to is seeing how even in the time period, how that even can affect how it would be played out
at different
today,
times. Yeah.
20 years ago.
Absolutely.
How things get affected by those things. So we can get real in with the details and analysis of just two of some of the best sci-fi series that are put out in so many mediums. Like, as a kid, I'm like, there's Star Wars books?
Yeah.
Man, it's a shame I don't like reading.
Right.
We're set. We're set.
We
and
are
so
set.
we're looking forward to all of you who like want to hop on to this crazy ride we're about to
Yes.
go full in on.
Yep, and once again, like the motivation for this is nothing more than to do this.
Let's have fun.
Let's do this,
and then just like put some microphones in front of us.
Exactly, like just nerd out like we normally would.
Exactly.
Anyway, and so that's kind of the name of the game coming up. Star Trek and Star Wars are both very healthy franchises, and we are excited to just keep talking and going. And I don't know about the rest of you, but excited for what we get to see next. Like, if you haven't seen Chapter 16
of Mandalorian,
go watch Chapter 16.
Preferably watch all the other numbers ahead of that.
You might want to, yes.
You can, by all means, it is your prerogative. If you want to watch Mandalorian backwards, go ahead.
That'll be really
but that
weird.
would be a different story than what we were watching.
Absolutely.
Imagine that,
oh god,
picking up your package and then abandoning it.
I'm gonna put this back in this box. Yes.
Just a long story of someone going, I can't find this person.
So yeah, I mean that's kind of the name of the game. So I guess for the next episode, I do want to talk of Star Wars and Star Trek fans. I want to talk
the meat of that.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's no better way.
No.
I mean, we are fans,
Yeah.
and so I'm going to be calling some of you out, and
not specifically,
not by name,
except for you, Ted.
And
I'm
John.
calling you out, Todd. But in general, like mindsets,
Yes.
and like attitudes,
Yes.
and peer pressure.
Cancel culture is disgusting.
So much of stuff from high school carrying
Yes.
over into the real world, where honestly we'd probably be better off if that didn't carry over.
Exactly.
Thank you, high school.
Exactly. So we'll be talking a little bit about that, and then I anticipate, like, we still got 3 episodes of Discovery left at this point. Terra Firma Part 2 just dropped on Thursday. Fantastic episode, by the way. Mirror Universe rocks. But the idea is probably by the time we'll be getting ready either to finish talking about, like, coming up to the penultimate episode of Discovery or the final episode, or we're going to be at the end of this season and we can talk about it, but definitely kind of reviewing The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
For any of you guys out there that are listening here in the beginning, and I hope there are, I would say that be prepared. We will definitely know when we'll let you know when there's spoilers coming along. But the next episode, be expecting spoilers pretty heavy going forward.
Mandalorian.
Specifically Mandalorian and Star Trek Discovery. Anything else, like if you're here and you don't know that Picard was assimilated by the Borg, go watch Best of Both Worlds and then come back. We'll
be here.
We'll be here for sure. So yeah, that's kind of the thought we're going to be going. We'll talk a lot about that. I think that I might throw in a top 10 list. We might.
Hey, I mean, YouTube loves top 10 lists.
They do love top 10 lists, and we will not try to do all of the classic tropes that YouTube.
And if we do, we will do it ironically and over-exaggerated as humanly possible.
Absolutely.
So it is apparent we are having as much fun with how overplayed this is.
Exactly. So yeah, that's I don't know. That's for me. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
We've been talking for damn near 2 hours, and it's kind of blowing my mind. Hopefully, the sound went well. We are in an open space. It's probably a little echoey. So we really appreciate the time. We really appreciate you guys tuning in and listening. We do have a Facebook page and a Twitter. We will post those the links at the end. There'll be links to our Facebook and our Twitter below, and then we'll also annotate them on the screen.
Yep. Well, I mean, well,
They're on the screen.
technically, annotations are
Don't
dead.
exist, yes.
Thank you, YouTube, for killing annotations off and making previous videos on YouTube with hyperlinks on screen impossible now.
It's ridiculous.
Thank you, YouTube, for that.
Yes.
But we'll have descriptions. We'll have stuff in the descriptions below.
Absolutely.
And for everything. So
yeah. And anytime we drop references, like I would say that like we will be trying to do as much information like citing sources and what have you, if we can, you know, like like specifically if there's an article that we're referencing or something like that, it is definitely always going to be down below. But for right now, the Facebook page and our Twitter page, by the way, nothing has been posted on either one of those yet. They're both going to be posted up there. Please engage us. And otherwise, you know, we look forward to talking to you again soon. So from me, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And we look forward to hearing from you guys and hearing from each other.
Exactly. So until then, take care, and the Force will be with you always.